puts their First Amendment right of free exercise on the same level of protection as the First Amendment rights of speech, assembly, and press by simply creating a judicial balancing test to weigh out the facts and cases, to make sure that a person's right to practice their faith versus government powers is matched and balanced and brought together in the fairest way possible.
Lawmakers debated religious freedom versus freedom to discriminate for a second time at the Capitol after the Senate took up the Georgia Religious Freedom Restoration Act today. A similar bill was passed a decade ago, only to be vetoed by then-Governor Nathan Deal. Good evening and welcome to Lawmakers on day 27 of the Georgia legislative session. I'm Donna Lowry in Atlanta. It may come as a surprise to some, but kindergarten is not mandatory in Georgia. One senator is trying to change that. Also, the debate over tort reform has included arguments for insurance reform in the state. Tonight, two lawmakers offer differing views on that issue. And we learn about a bill that passed in the Senate to protect vulnerable homeowners who fall victim to scam artists after a natural disaster hits. Let's start with the flurry of bills on the floor of both the chambers today with Sarah Kallis from today's Capitol Report.
Hi, Donna. With crossover day looming, each chamber worked late into the day, passing a plethora of bills.
The issue of, and need for, religious freedom protections was debated in the Senate today. SB 36, the Georgia Religious Freedom Restoration Act, is supposed to keep the balance between state and local laws and an individual's religious rights, mirroring a federal law already on the books.
After the federal RFRA law was passed almost unanimously in 1993, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in 1997 that the federal RFRA only protected people from unfair federal government intrusion and would not protect people from unfair state and local government intrusion on their basic rights. Since then, 39 of 50 states have adopted their own state RFRA laws or seen their courts adopt RFRA-level protections by judicial ruling to protect people from faith, people of faith from overreach by state and local governments. RFRA puts their First Amendment right of free exercise on the same level of protection as the First Amendment rights of speech, assembly, and press by simply creating a judicial balancing test to weigh out the facts and cases, to make sure that a person's right to practice their faith versus government powers is matched and balanced and brought together in the fairest way possible.
But Democrats pushed back on the bill. First, on a personal level.
Under this bill, someone could deny me, my husband, my son, and my beautiful daughter service at a business and use their religion as a reason to do that. So this isn't about politics for me. It's about the ability for my family to live freely in this state.
As well as disputing the legal fairness of the bill.
RFRA at the federal level has changed dramatically since then. It does not provide the same protections. And in fact, it is being used across the country to discriminate against people. It is also a fact that there are over 30 states that have RFRA laws in the books, but the vast majority of those states have a civil rights statute in place to protect against discrimination. Georgia is one of the handful of states that does not have a state-level civil rights law.
But in the end, Democrats failed to sway any Republicans, and the bill passed 32-23 along party lines. Meanwhile, in the House, a bill that aims to help missing adults with autism, HB 465, would allow law enforcement to send an emergency Maddie's Call alert when an adult with autism goes missing. Maddie's Call alerts are currently used for adults with dementia or other cognitive disabilities.
This bill is Georgia's bill in saving lives because we can help others find their loved ones and help law enforcement with the tools to find them quicker. There are other states and cities such as Los Angeles, California, Chicago, Illinois, New York, Houston, Texas, and Phoenix that have established this law.
HB 465 passed unanimously. The House also voted on a bipartisan bill that would prevent people with intellectual disabilities from being sentenced to death. HB 123 would bar the state from seeking or imposing the death penalty on individuals found to have an intellectual disability by the court during the pretrial process.
Beyond the legal principles, legalese of this bill reflects our state's shared values and our belief in our state motto of wisdom, justice, and moderation. We must recognize that intellectual disability affects an individual's ability to understand those complex legal proceedings, not to mention their actions and the results thereof.
To put them to death is to punish them for a cognitive limitation that they did not choose, a limitation in essence, a part of their fundamental human identity. We are not defined by how we treat the strongest among us, but how we protect the most vulnerable.
The bill passed unanimously. Also, the House approved HB 79, which would create a voluntary $300 tax credit for safe gun storage devices, like lockboxes, firearm safes, or trigger locks. The credit could also be used for gun safety courses.
Especially when you have children or maybe neighborhood children come to visit that weren't trained like maybe you train your own children, grandparents that may not think about this. And then, of course, we've got troubled teens. That's almost redundant to say that because all of us were somewhat troubled when we were teenagers. But it's a challenge, and and occasionally gets to the level of a tragedy.
The bill was supported by representatives on both sides of the aisle, but some Democrats say it does not do enough.
What if we passed a bill offering families vouchers for buying car seats, but we did not also have a law requiring car seat use for babies and children? What if we passed a bill instructing car insurance companies to offer lower premiums for drivers with clean records, but we didn't also have speed limits or DUI laws? What if we passed a bill offering tax credits for swimming lessons and water safety courses, but did not also require safety fences around public and private swimming pools? In those cases, I think we can recognize how, despite all the good intentions, incentives alone do not work nearly as well as incentives coupled with regulation.
It passed 165-8.
Lawmakers return on Thursday for crossover day, the last day a bill can be passed in one chamber and moved to the other this session. That's my Capitol Report. Donna?
Thanks, Sarah. We're going to spend time looking at legislation to improve the insurance industry, protect homeowners from scam artists, and make kindergarten mandatory in Georgia. Let's start with insurance. I spoke earlier today with Democratic Senator Derrick Mallow about his bills, SB 155 and 156, that deal with reducing insurance premiums. And then I talked to the Senate's chair of Insurance and Labor, Republican Senator Larry Walker III, to get his take on the legislation. First, Senator Mallow says residents in his district came to him complaining about how tough it is to find affordable insurance.
When I talked to my constituents and they were trying to figure out where they could shop for insurance, how they could find it, I had to think about it. And other than Googling insurance companies, and you can pay for search engine optimization, they really couldn't find some of the better carriers of companies because they didn't have any knowledge about that. And if you go to an independent agent, they have this knowledge, but they're not investing a whole bunch of money in marketing because they are an independent agent. They're a broker representative of many different insurance companies. So you may not know to go to them or call them that they exist. You may just see Progressive online and, let me go to Progressive and get a quote. You see Flow.
I know that we've talked a lot about tort reform. It's something the governor wants this session, but a lot of people have been asking about insurance reform. Do you see this as part of that?
Absolutely, because what people agree with and why they're supportive of tort reform is for one single issue, and that is because their premiums continue to increase. And so even with tort reform, the American Tort Association says there are no guarantees that this will lower premiums, right? And so other states like Florida have enacted similar measures. They've lowered the insurance premium tax. They've changed the co-insurance model. They've worked to bring more carriers in by changing some of the regulatory environment around non-admitted carriers. Those things matter if we want to lower rates, and we didn't do that in a comprehensive approach. I still have people who are saying, hey, I called my insurance company and I got full coverage at the dealership, but they're telling me I got liability only and I was just in a car wreck, and now they won't honor what I had at the dealership. That's a problem. A piece of legislation that would ask for any rate increase to over 10% for the insurance commissioner to have to hold a public hearing so that the general public, John Q. public, can hear why the insurance company is proposing the rate increase over 10% in premiums. Most people don't know what the discussions are between the insurance commissioner and insurance companies. It happens in his office, and while he said he doesn't approve all of the rate increases that they asked for, we still don't know their justification for why they're increasing rates, and it can't be based on everything. Property and casualty is going up, renters is going up, homeowners is going up, general liability, every version of insurance is going just about up. So if you want to charge more than 10% in premiums, I think you should have to disclose that at a public hearing. So there could be some public accountability and scrutiny for those companies.
Yeah, one other thing I saw about it, you want some kind of database for consumers to compare rates. Talk about that.
Right now, you have a lot of insurance companies that own these websites, and you think you're shopping it out amongst their competitors, but those websites are proprietary and owned by the actual insurance company. And so they're going to show their rate favorable to who they may show as competitors, but they're not competitors. They may be subsidiary companies that they actually have an interest or ownership in. So what this website would do would just simply list the average rate across each line of business, so consumers will know who's an admitted carrier, who's a non-admitted carrier, who's allowed to operate in the state, so that they have a good understanding, because auto insurance may be the best company for one consumer, but if people have never heard of them because they don't spend a lot of money on marketing, then people may think it's only the big four that they see on TV.
As the chair of insurance in the Senate, talk a little bit about what you feel about Senator Mallow's bill.
I think they're interesting. I think he raised some valid concerns, and I look forward to having a hearing on his ideas and vetting it out, and let the committee hear that, and maybe we'll hear from some industry folks in the commissioner's office on that. So I look forward to it.
I asked him about this, the fact that we were talking about tort reform, and some people have said insurance reform should take place. What are your feelings about that?
Well, I think if we can stabilize our civil justice system and make it more balanced and fair, it will bring more competition back into the market between insurance companies and stabilize rates, and hopefully we'll see even some lowering of rates. It's not going to happen overnight, but the crazy lawsuits or the crazy verdicts we've seen have driven some of the insurance carriers to leave our market for certain segments of business, and when you have less competition and less choice for the consumer, it's not a good thing, and we're seeing prices go up. I do want to make a point. What other aspect of your life have you not seen inflation in? The Biden inflation has hit every aspect of our life, whether it be automobiles or homes, the cost of construction, the cost of medical care. All of that has gone up astronomically in the last few years, and all of that factors into the cost of insurance. So when you have to replace a vehicle or you have a hospital stay after an accident, those costs have gone up, and so that's reflected in the increased premium. But certainly the frivolous lawsuits has played a part in that too.
Okay. Let's talk about your bill. Tell us about SB 35 that deals with property insurance policies.
Well, we've seen, again, a pretty tough insurance market, a hard insurance market with carriers getting a lot stricter on their underwriting guidelines and trying to pare down their exposure in Georgia, and we're seeing a lot more non-renewals of people's homeowners insurance. Current statute only requires a 30-day written notice for non-renewals, and that's by mail, U.S. mail. Some people aren't getting that, maybe a week before the non-renewal. I feel like we need to extend that notice time frame to 60 days to give the consumer more time to respond and react and find other coverage. It also will help their agents be able to navigate the market for them and help them find other coverage, or maybe possibly get the non-renewal rescinded by the carrier.
Now, Chairman Walker's bill, SB 35, passed in the Senate, and Representative Matthew Gamble is carrying it in the House. As for Senator Mallow's bills, Walker says he expects his committee to hold a hearing on them in the coming weeks. Chairman Walker also talked to me about help for Georgians hit hard by Hurricane Helene. He has SB 201, which would protect homeowners who sign contracts with unscrupulous contractors. Walker also pushed for budget allocations to provide hurricane relief.
It's got a lot more money in it for both the forestry industry, the ag industry, to help them recover, but also we put money in for nonprofits to be able to get grants to go repair folks' roofs and stuff like that. I'm excited about that. We put a lot more money in for the debris removal to help our cities and counties with getting the debris removed. The federal government, it's a 75-25 match on the debris removal. The state has committed and the governor has committed that the state will step in and fill that 25% match and take that burden off the local communities. So I'm excited that we were able to put additional funding there. I've got a bill, Senate Bill 201. It's on the floor today. I hope it'll pass. It's going to give protection to consumers after a storm, and a historic storm like Helene. We often see contractors swoop in that are unscrupulous, and people are under a lot of pressure, and it really, they're at the worst point of their life, wondering where they're going to live and don't have a roof under their head, and so they're pressured to sign contracts with contractors that might not be legitimate. And this bill I have today will give some protection to allow the consumers to get out of those contracts easier if it's after a natural disaster.
Yeah, so these scam artists is who you want to go after and
right,
make sure people
right.
have some kind of recourse.
Right. So it has two components. One is if they can cancel the consumer, the homeowner can cancel the contract with the contractor within 5 days of being notified by their insurance company. If the claim is not covered or only partially covered, they can get out of the contract within 5 days.
His bill, SB 201, passed by a vote of 53-1 in the Senate this afternoon and now goes to the House. I also talked to Senator Mallow about his bipartisan bill, SB 65, to require mandatory kindergarten. I asked him what led him to draft the legislation.
I was sitting at Schumann Elementary School with Principal Wallace Lewis one day, and she had a family coming in, and they were coming in to enroll for first graders at the start of school. And I thought, enrolling in first graders should have been here in kindergarten, right? And then she, family said they were going to have to test in. And I said, well, Principal Wallace Lewis, why do you have to test in? And she said, because first grade is the compulsory age for attendance in public schools in the state of Georgia, either homeschool, public school, private school. You have to go at first grade. I said, so they have to test in? She said, yeah, because if there's any deficiencies or remediations, we need to know that now so that we can get the interventions for that student, get them on an IEP, get them on any of the other resources they may need. I said, well, why not kindergarten? She said, well, kindergarten's not required. I said, you kidding me? We fund kindergarten, but it's not required. She said, no, the compulsory age for attendance is by age 7. And so we had a bill to make kindergarten mandatory in the state of Georgia. We know that our children can't read and read on grade level or third grade. The earlier a child is educated, the better off they'll be. For parents who are doing a good job, this wouldn't affect them. For the parents who would enroll their kids and let them stay in school for 20 days and take them back out of school, this bill would prohibit you from doing that, because if you're homeless, I love you, guess what? That kid would get 2 meals a day, breakfast and lunch, and they would do that by enrolling in kindergarten and someone compelling them to make sure their child was educated.
And one part of the bill is to require school districts to actually provide it. And that means money for these districts. So what do you say to them about that?
We fund kindergarten in the QBE formula. So kindergarten in the QBE formula is the highest weight of money that the state allocates in the quality basic education formula. You get more money for kindergarten than you do any other grade, which is why I oppose the school voucher bill, because the $6,500 is even more than we allocate to the kindergartners enrolling in school at the kindergarten level. And so with that being our strongest weight, where we spend the most money, then it should be required if we're going to put the most investment there.
That bill passed out of the Senate's Education and Youth Committee and is now with the Rules Committee. It could possibly come to the floor before crossover day. I want to thank both Senator Mallow and Senator Walker for our conversations. Coming up, we're going to talk about some unique bills this session that might get your mouth watering, plus an update on the busy week at the Capitol with correspondent Sarah Kallis. You're watching Lawmakers on GPB.
Georgia Farm Bureau, a grassroots organization dedicated to preserving Georgia agriculture. Farm Bureau advocates for all Georgia farmers at the state capitol during the session and year-round. Georgia Farm Bureau, the voice of Georgia farmers.
It's good to have everyone back together.
Good news indeed.
Put your feet up a minute. It's beautiful.
How does that sound to you, man?
It's what I love doing. Cup of tea.
I was thinking more a double whiskey.
Hurry up!
Freshly baked biscuits.
Always.
Well, this is all proving rather cozy, isn't it?
Understanding the past gives a sense of the future. This is the first time that anyone has seen this in 2,000 years.
This is amazing.
Well, I'm excited now.
Pompeii is a battle against time.
You think I'm joking, but look at this. It did really happen.
Don't let anybody tell you who you are.
History teaches us to honor the past.
When you look back, you're like, wow, that was pretty special.
This is something that's actually altering the course of history.
You're charged with keeping these stories alive.
Welcome back to Lawmakers. I'm Donna Lowry. We're going to talk now about a couple of what we're calling quirky bills. These are bills that are not as serious as a lot of what they deal with at the Capitol. The first one is making cornbread the official bread of Georgia. I spoke to the bill's sponsor, Representative Casey Carpenter of Dalton. Let's talk about this, Representative Casey Carpenter. You want to make cornbread the state bread of Georgia.
That's right. We're on a reunion tour this year. This thing passed out of the House pretty convincingly last year, and so we're looking forward to trying to get it out again.
What is so Georgia about cornbread?
Man, all the meat and threes up and down the I-75 corridor, and you head on to Southwest Georgia, man. People love cornbread in the state of Georgia. And it really goes back to the Cherokee, for me, the Cherokee Indians. Depending on where you live, it's different Indian groups, but that was a Native American food, and they taught the settlers how to make it. And then, of course, obviously there's mills all across the state that have milled corn for years for cornbread. And as a man that loves Southern food, cornbread's where it's at.
So it's grown here, and then they also have the mills, and then they go ahead and sell it here.
That's correct. That's correct.
So it makes it so Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, it's as Georgia as anything else.
What's your favorite part of it? I mean, when you have cornbread, what do you want it with?
I'm a big fan of peas, so I like pea juice and cornbread, some greens, hard to beat greens with it. My granddad used to eat buttermilk and cornbread crumbled up for dinner. So, yeah, there's a lot of ways. Everybody's got their thing.
My grandmother used to put in buttermilk, buttermilk and cornbread. Let's talk a little bit about, last year you had some competition, the biscuit.
Yeah, Big Biscuits came out, and we've actually had a few students there talking about biscuit. And, you know, obviously Chick-fil-A and Hardee's from Atlanta, they're big biscuit sellers. But I just think that, you know, there's biscuits everywhere. Cornbread, it really sets us apart.
It makes it different. It's totally Georgia.
Yeah,
it goes back to the indigenous people.
That's
so
right.
How are you feeling? It came out of the House last year.
You know, I mean, I feel just like anything. I feel pretty good about it. It got mixed up with some additional language in the Senate, so it kind of died in Senate rules. But I think senators like cornbread. We just didn't give them an opportunity to vote on it. But I look forward to my friend Burt Jones bringing this up if we ever give it over there.
I see you with a tray of cornbread walking through the Senate, serving it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, you got to do what you got to do to get your bills passed.
Hot with the butter, a little bit.
Butter melting off the top of that thing, man, it'll break your heart.
So you're feeling really good about it.
I am.
Okay.
I mean, you know, we'll see. It's early.
All right, let's hit your pitch. Let's hear your pitch.
I don't mean, there's not much of a pitch. If you don't like cornbread, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's fantastic with a lot of different things. And this is Georgia, not as the peach. Robert Dickey will kill me, but it's pretty close to the peach.
I love it. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Another appetizing bill is about making Brunswick stew the official stew of Georgia. Here's my conversation with Representative Rick Townsend of where else? Brunswick. Thank you so much, Representative Townsend, for talking with us right now. So let's talk about, you would like to make Brunswick stew the official stew of Georgia.
Of course.
What's that all about?
It's really all about, it makes sense historically, and it makes sense economically as well. Besides, it tastes great. You can't beat it.
Tell people who don't know what Brunswick stew is, what it is.
Brunswick is kind of a thick type stew based. It has usually pork in it, where we put it down in Brunswick, and it has certain veggies in there, and you cook it and simmer it for a long time, and the stew masters do their thing, and it comes out great. It comes out really tasty and delicious.
So it's tomatoey a little bit.
A little tomatoey, yeah.
And then it does have the corn. Now talk about the corn and its historical reference in Georgia.
Well, of course, you think about the historical reference about cornbread, and not to mention Casey Carpenter's bill, of course, on making that the official, I guess, bread of Georgia. But the thing about Brunswick stew, it can go with anything, whether it's biscuits or cornbread. Most people eat cornbread with it. But it's been around for a couple hundred years. And so, of course, the American Indians had the corns, and now people like to put sweet corn in there at times. It's really up to the chef and how they want to cook it. And you always have different variations, and we have blind taste judges down there who blind taste testing when we have a Stewbilee, it's called. A one-day festival.
Stewbilee?
Oh, yes, you got to come. We have thousands that come. It's a one-day festival, raise money for local youth groups and organizations, part of Kiwanis, if you know the civic organization Kiwanis. And it's one of our fundraisers, and just have a lot of, over usually 20 to 30 teams out there, and just have a good time, a festival, and raise a lot of money.
So it's called Brunswick stew.
It is.
But it really didn't originate in Brunswick.
Well, it originated in Brunswick, Georgia.
Right.
Unfortunately, there's one of our counties in Virginia has tried to proclaim they're the official birthplace of Brunswick stew. And we know that's not to be the case. So, I mean, we've got a plaque back in Brunswick, Georgia telling you that. There's, without a doubt, it had to be Brunswick, Georgia.
Did they just try to steal it from you? They tried to take the name?
They did.
Okay.
They
and
did.
St. Simon's, there's a connection.
Yeah, St. Simon's just across the causeway. That's where I live at. And Brunswick's our sister city, and we all get along together and have a good time, and it's just part of Glenn County.
So tell me how you're doing with this bill.
It passed out of committee the other day, went through special rules. I was excited. We had the mayor of Brunswick wrote a proclamation and letter of support. City council did as well. We had a local homeboy person who grew up in Brunswick come testify about the significance of it. And we'll see, it goes off to rules. I'll be presenting rules either probably Friday or Monday. So hopefully we can get it through rules and through the House. And then my counterpart, Mike Hodges in the Senate, would be carrying the bill in the Senate. He also lives on St. Simon's and fellow Kiwanian, and so he's going to carry the bill for me once they get it through the House.
I want to know where the samples are. Did you serve any even at the hearings?
I did not, but I did make a promise. Once it gets through the Senate and they approve it, then I'm bringing in samples.
You have to have Brunswick Stew Day.
I'm going to bring in one of my chefs, Ron Adams, the local stew master. If not, I'll bring up stew from Southern Solo, one of our great places down there.
Okay. We're ready for it. Make sure you let all of us on the crew know about it.
I was going to say, I'm sure you want to be invited, right?
That's it.
We'll do that, Donna.
All righty. Thank you. All right. Both the cornbread bill and the Brunswick stew bill passed in the House, on to the Senate. And with me is Sarah Kallis. We have one more day, crossover day. So tell us what to expect on our special show on Thursday.
Okay, so we have some great guests lined up to tell us all about what's going on Crossover Day. We have Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones. We'll have House Minority Whip Sam Park, and we'll have Senator Greg Dolezal, who's a Senate Republican. And so they'll be there to talk to us about all things crossover and some of the bills that we're expecting to come up.
There's a lot still left to do, isn't there?
There is. I know we often call sports betting the issue that never dies, but we may see a bill that could legalize that come up in the House tomorrow.
Okay, then. Well, we're going to keep up with you, and we hope you'll all tune in. It's in the middle of the basketball playoffs for high school, but we'll be here. Thanks for coming in. That does it for Lawmakers Today. We're off tomorrow as lawmakers have a committee day. But of course, as we said, we're back Thursday for our special Crossover Day show with interviews from the Capitol. Have a good night.